Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the 7th part in this series where we're building a personal dashboard app using Angular. In this video, we're going to be focused on building the UI for the Add Note view. Alright, so it will look something like this, right? So in the Notes view, we can see here that there will be an Add button, right? So we should actually make this Add button and we should put it here. And when it's clicked, we should then see a UI that looks like this, right? Where the user can enter in the note title and the content of the note. So let's go and build that now. Let's go back to the code. Okay, and the first thing we have to do is we have to actually work on creating the add button, right? The add button that we saw here. So let's go to the notes.component.html over here, and just below the notes list, we should work on creating that add button. Okay, so this add button is actually an anchor tag, and that's because it will link out to a new page, right? So let's create an anchor tag. Let's get rid of the href, and let's give this the class of btn, and let's type in add. Okay, let's save that and let's go back to the application. Okay, and we can actually see here that we can see that text there. Okay, so let's go and style this now. So let's go to styles.css, and let's go down here and let's style the btn class. Alright, so first of all, let's set some padding. So let's just set 10 pixels of padding, and let's also set the background. So let's set the background to let's say RGBA black 0.7. Okay, let's save that and let's go back to the application. Okay, so now we can see that. Cool. Alright, so here we can see it's kind of overlapping with this element. Let's just try and fix this by giving this a display inline flex. Okay, cool, so that's fixed the issue. Alright, and let's also change the color of the text here. So let's go here, and let's just set the color to white. Save that, go back to the application. Okay. Cool, alright, so let's actually go back to the code here, and let's just set the font size to 18 pixels. Font size 18 pixels. Like that. Okay, and let's go and see how that looks. Alright, cool, so that's a bit bigger. Cool, alright, so that's a little bit larger. And let's just go and change the padding. So we currently have it as 10 pixels all around. Let's change it so that it's 12 pixels on the top and bottom, but 22 pixels on the left and right. Okay, so let's save that and go back to the application. And there we go. So now we have 22 pixels on the left and the right, and 12 pixels on the top and the bottom. Cool. Alright, so at this point, let's add some space in between the button and the note cards. The way that we can do this is we could put some margin on the button itself, but I'm actually going to create a class that should encapsulate a group of buttons, right? So it will be a container for the buttons. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to create a class called buttons container, and I'm going to go and just set margin top to 20 pixels. Okay, so if we save this, and then if we go to the notes template here and just encapsulate this in the buttons container, so, and we move this inside there. Okay, and actually we could probably rename this so that it's more consistent with what we have here. So let's just go here and let's just rename this to btns container, buttons container. Okay, save that and let's go back to the template and just rename that. Alright, cool. Save that and let's go back to the application. And there we go. So now we have 20 pixels of space in between here. That's good. Let's go back to the code now, and let's go to the style sheet, styles.css, and we can now go back up to the .btn class, and we can add some more styles here. And actually, before we do that, we can actually center this, right? So let's go to the buttons container, and let's add a class modifier which will center these buttons, right? So what I mean by that is, if we go here, we can actually say that if there is the class of btns container and .btns centered, right, then we want to justify content center. Okay, so now if there's an element which has the class of btns container and btns centered, then it will center the children elements, which in this case will be the buttons themselves, right? We can do this, but before we do this, we actually have to also set this to display flex. So let's do display flex. Okay, so let's save that, and let's go back to the application. Okay, and we don't see it centered, and that's because we actually have to go to the notes template and add that class, right? btns centered. All right, save that, and let's go back to the application, and now it's centered. Great, and that's pretty cool. And let's go back to the style sheet. Okay, so now let's go back up to the btn class, and let's set some border radius. Okay, so let's go here and let's do border radius of 4 pixels. Okay, and let's save that, go back to the application. Okay, cool, there we go. So now it's got rounded corners. That's cool. And let's actually increase the font weight of this text. So let's go here and let's go here and do font weight of 600. Okay, so let's do that, save that, and go back to the application, and there we go. Cool. All right, so at this point, let's actually go and add the icon. So let's go and add a add icon to this add button. So let's go here, let's put that on a new line, and then before the text, let's put i.material icons outlined. Okay, and then the name of the icon will be add. Okay, so let's save that, go back to the application, and now we see this add icon. Okay, cool. So first of all, we see that it's not really centered with this text, right? So let's go back to the code here. Let's go to the style sheet, and let's go here, and let's make sure that we do align items center. Okay, let's save that, and let's go back to the application, and there we go. So now it's centered. Okay, cool. So now we want to actually add some spacing on the right side of the icon, right? So we can add some space in between those two. So let's go here, and let's actually go to the template here, and let's actually add a new class to this so that we can just target this element here, because I don't really want to put the styling for the positioning of the icon in the global style sheet, because it may be different depending on the icon we use. So for example, here we're using the add icon, right? And in the future, we may create other buttons which have other icons inside them, and those icons will have a different kind of visual weight. So they may need a different set of spacing styles. So I'm just gonna put this put a new class here called add btn, and then I'm gonna save that, and then I'm gonna go to the notes.component.css, and I'm just gonna put the class here, the class styles here. So I'm gonna do .add btn, and I'm actually only gonna style the icon, right? So I'm only gonna style the icon. So let's put that there. And here we want to actually put some spacing on the right side. So let's go here and let's do some margin right and set about 10 pixels there. Let's save that and go back to the application. Okay, so that isn't too bad, but I think we can maybe decrease it a little bit. So I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna decrease this to 5 pixels. Okay, let's save that and go back to the application. Okay, so that's a lot better. Cool. All right, so that's pretty good, but I'm gonna actually put some negative margin on the left side of this icon to just remove some white space on the left side, because I think visually it looks like there's more space on the left side here. So I'm just gonna go here and I'm gonna do margin left, and then I'm gonna do -2 pixels. Save that, go back. Cool, so I think that's pretty good. Let's just try -3 pixels. Cool. All right, so I think that's pretty good. Let's now go back. Let's just close this and let's go back to the style sheet, styles.scss. And yeah, all right, so I think we've done most of the base styles there. So now I think we can actually go and work on the hover state. So if we go back here, there is no hover state at the moment. So first of all, let's actually make this look clickable, because right now we just see kind of like the default cursor here. So if we make this look clickable by putting a cursor pointer, that would be better. So cursor pointer, like that, and let's save that, go back to the application, and now that looks clickable. Cool. Now let's go and add some hover styles. So let's do and hover, and let's change the background color. So let's make it a bit darker. Let's go background, RGBA, black. Okay, and then let's set this to 0.78, okay, because what we have here is 0.7. Let's change it to 0.78. Okay, let's save that, go back to the application. Okay, so very subtle difference there. Okay, so let's also add a backdrop filter blur. Okay, so if we go here and do backdrop filter, blur 2 pixels, like that. Save that, go back to the application. Okay, cool. All right, so now let's go back here and let's work on the click styles, right? So on active, let's go and active. And here we can do a darker background. So let's just copy this one, paste that in there, and just set this to 0.85. Let's save that, go back to the application, and okay. All right, so it's very subtle, but it is getting darker. Cool, all right, so that's the styles for that done. We can now move on to actually creating the UI for the add note view. So let's go and do that. Let's go and first of all, we actually have to go and generate. All right, so first of all, we actually have to go and generate this component, the add note view component. So let's do ng generate component, add dash note. Okay, so if we now go to add note.html, this one here. Okay, so that's like that. Cool. All right, so now let's actually go to the routing module and let's set up the route for that. So let's just go here and set the path to notes/add, and the component will be the add note component. There we go. And if we just close this now, and let's just clean up our workspace here. Let's just close these tabs here, and okay. All right, so let's actually go to the template here, and let's just set up the link for this button so that it links to that component. Okay, so if we go to here and do router link, okay, and then type in add. Okay, so let's save that and go back to the application. And here, first of all, we see that there's this underline here, and don't worry about that because we'll fix that in just a minute. But let's try and click on it. Okay, and we are sent to the add note component, and you can see /note/add. Okay, cool. All right, so here we have the add note component. So let's go and actually work on the markup and styling. So let's go to add note, and let's just get rid of this. Okay. Oh, but one quick thing. Here we have the text decoration. Let's actually go and remove that. Let's just go here and let's go to the styles.css and let's go to the .btn class, and here we can do text decoration none. Okay, let's save that, go back to the application, and there we go. Cool. All right, so let's go back to the code here for the add note component.html. And first of all, we want to create a div which has the class of add note wrapper. Okay, and we also want to add another class that we'll create called has blurred white BG. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to create a reusable class that we can use to give elements a blurred white background, right? Because we'll be using this quite a lot. So I'm going to now save this, and I'm going to go and create this class here, okay? Alright, so let's go to styles.css, and we can go to the bottom here, and I'm going to create that, alright, and okay, and let's set the background to RGBA white 0.85, and let's set backdrop filter to blur with 20 pixels. Okay, save that, and let's go back to the application, and we can't see anything. And the reason for that is because there's no content inside our add note wrapper, right? Here, so here we actually need some content to actually see what's going on. So let me just put some lorem ipsum here so that we can see what's going on. All right, so we see this, right? But this isn't very good because we can't really see what's going on. So let's actually add some padding here. Let's go to styles.css. Let's close this actually, and let's go to the add note style sheet, this one here, and let's go and style the add note wrapper. So let's go here and the add note wrapper, and let's give this a padding value of 35 pixels. So let's save that, go back to the application. Okay, that's better. And let's also put some border radius. So border radius 5 pixels. Save that, go back. Okay, that's better. Okay, and the next thing we can do is we can actually set a max width on this so that it isn't taking up the full width, but it's actually centered and it has a max width. And we actually already have a class for that, right? We have the container class that we're using here, here, and there, right? So let's actually use this same class. So let's go back here and let's go to the code and let's go to the template. And what we can do is we can go here and actually add the container class to this div, right? Okay, and the container class, if we go to styles.css, if we go and find .container, all it is it has a max width and it's using margin auto to center it. Okay, so let's just close that and go back here, save this, and go back to the application. And now it has a max width and it's centered. Cool. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is I actually want to see what happens when we have an overflow, right? So let's go back here and let's create more of these lorem ipsums. So let's go here, lorem ipsum, let's create a few more of these, and let's save this and go back to the application. Okay, so now let's go and see what happens when there's an overflow. Let's just make the height of the window smaller. And here we see that we have this happening. So this isn't too good. So let's actually go here and let's make sure that this has a maximum height of 100%. Max height 100%. And let's save that and go back to the application. And there we go. So now, as you can see here, it only has the background for 100% of its height. However, the text is still overflowing, right? So it's actually still overflowing. So that's because by default we have overflow set to visible, right? This is currently by default set to overflow visible. So we can change this by setting this to overflow hidden to hide it. If we save that, go back here. Now it's hidden. Now we can't see that text anymore. But we don't want that. We actually want it to show a scroll bar, right? So we want to do overflow auto. Okay. So let's save that and go back to the application. And now we can see a scroll bar. Cool. All right. So let's now go and look at the UI design. Cool. All right. So here's the design that we want to kind of implement. Let's actually work on adding a heading to this component. So let's go here and let's go here and let's go and add a heading. So let's just do H2 and let's type in new note, okay? Okay, let's save that and let's go back to the application, and now it says new note. Great, but we actually want to make this bold and kind of like how we have it here, right? So let's go and add a class to this called isBold. Okay, and let's actually go to the styles.css and let's implement this class. So let's go here and let's target h1.isBold and h2.isBold. Okay, so whenever the isBold class is added to a h1 or h2 element, we want to apply the styles here. Okay, all right, so inside here we want to do font weight bold, and we also want to do letter spacing -2 pixels. Okay, let's save that and go back to the application, and there we go. Okay, cool. All right, so that's looking pretty good. But one thing I quickly want to do though is I want to go up here to the HTML tag styles, and I just want to give this a default color, right? So I want all of the elements in our application to have a default color of hashtag 222. Okay, let's save that and let's go back to the application. And I think that looks a bit better because this is a slightly lighter color. All right, cool. All right, so let's cool. All right, so let's go and look at the design again. And what we can now do is we can now work on this form here, right? So cool. All right, so let's actually go and start working on creating the form fields for this new note view. So let's go back to the add note component.html and let's actually get rid of all of these. Okay, save that and go back to the application. All right, so we just have this now. That's fine. Let's now go and work on the form fields. So first of all, let's create a form tag. Let's not use this action. Okay, so all of our form fields will go inside here, and later on we'll be setting up Angular forms. Okay, so for now let's just create the fields. So let's first create the input. So let's use the input tag. Okay, and let's put a placeholder, enter note title, like that. Let's save that, go back to the application. Okay, let's just put this like that. All right, just remove that space there. I think it might look a bit better. Let's go back to the application. Okay, all right, so first of all we see that this is very small, and it needs to be styled, right, so that it looks more like this. So let's actually go to the styles.css and let's start to style that input. But first let's go and actually add a class to this input. So let's call this text box. Okay, let's save that and let's go back here and let's now style the text box class. Okay, so first of all let's actually increase the size, right, because here we see that it's got a very small font size, right? So if we just go here and give this a font size of 18 pixels, save that, go back here, that's a lot better. And we have to also do font family inherit, because currently it's not using the default font family, right? If we look in here and inspect this, we see that the font is Arial. If we look here and go to computed and go to font family, it's Arial, right? So it isn't using the default font family. Okay, so let's do font family inherit. Okay, let's save that, go back to the application, and there we go. Cool. All right, so the next thing we can do is we could probably make this 100% width, right? Okay, so let's go back here and let's do width 100%. Save that, go back to the application, and there we go. Cool. Let's now work on the padding, right? So let's change the padding of this. Let's set this to 5 pixels, 10 pixels. save that, go back to the application. Cool, alright, so now there's 5 pixels on the top and the bottom, and there's 10 pixels on the left and the right. We could actually probably maybe make this 7 or 8 pixels. Save that, go back here. So that looks pretty good, but I'm going to make it 8 pixels, okay? So 8 pixels, 10 pixels. Cool, alright. So let's now just change the background a little bit. So let's give this background of RGBA white 0.9. Save that, go back to application, okay. And let's also change the border, okay, so let's change this border. So border should be 2 pixels solid, and then let's put RGBA black 0.3 as the color. Okay, let's save that and go back to the application, and there we go. Cool. Alright, so that looks kind of like what we have here, except here we have a border radius, right? So it's got curved corners. So let's go and set the border radius to 4 pixels. Save that, go back to the application, and there we go. Cool. Alright, so the next thing we can do is we can actually add some spacing in between the heading here and these form fields. And I'm going to do that by just putting some margin bottom on the heading, right? So I guess we could go to the H2 tag, and we can just give this some margin bottom 25 pixels. Okay, save that, and let's go back to the application, and there we go. Cool. Alright, so the next thing we can do is we can actually work on the hover and focus states of this input. So let's go back here, and let's go down to the text box styles, and let's work on the hover and focus styles. So on hover, we want the background to change, so we're going to do background, and let's do RGBA white 0.95, and let's save that and go back to the application. Okay, so that's very subtle. I don't even think it's really that visible. We can see this a bit clearer, I guess, if we do 0.7 and just try that. Okay, so that's definitely working. Okay, cool. But I'm still going to keep it at 0.9. I guess you could make it 0.85 and then do that. But I think 0.9 is fine. So let's do 0.9, 0.95. Okay, let's save that. And I guess let's also change the border color on hover. So let's go here. Okay, and then here, let's just do border color RGBA black 0.42 and save that. Go back to the application. Cool. Alright, so that's pretty nice. And on focus, let's set the background to white. Let's save that. Okay, and here we see that we get this outline, right? That isn't the border, it's actually an outline. So if we go here, we can actually prevent this by doing outline none. Outline none. Okay, save that, go back to the application, and there we go. Cool. But here we see that the border is changing color as we aren't hovering over it, even if it's focused, right? So what we should do is we should set the border color to stay this shade of dark even when it's focused. So if we go here and we can just copy this and paste that in there, save that, go back to the application, and there we go. So now it's always going to stay the same border color even if I'm not hovered over it. Okay, cool. So that's pretty good. But here we could actually just move this style as it's the same. We could just move it into a selector that is selecting both the hover and the focus states. So we could do something like this. We could do and hover, comma, and focus, and then we could just move this here like that, and then just get rid of this one, save that, go back to the application, and then there we go. Cool. Alright, so that's pretty good. I guess we can now move on to the text area. So if we look here, we have this text area as well. So let's go and create that. let's go back to our code. Let's go to the add note component template, and let's create a text area. We can get rid of all of these and just give this a class of text area. Okay, let's save that and let's go back to the application. And now we see this, right? All right, so let's go and style this now. So let's go and let's go to styles.css. And basically a lot of these styles will be the same, right? So we actually want to apply these styles to the text area as well. So here we can just add another selector here. So .text area. Okay, so let's save that and let's go back to the application. And there we go. So that's looking pretty good. Let's actually add some spacing in between these two. So here, what we could do is we could go here and we could add some margin bottom. So let's add some margin bottom here. Let's add 20 pixels of margin bottom. Save that and let's go back to the application. And there we go. Cool. All right. So the next thing we can do is we can actually add a placeholder here. So let's go and add a placeholder. So let's go to the template and let's set the placeholder to enter note content. Save that, go back to the application. Cool, that's looking good. Cool, all right. One thing to note is that by default we're able to kind of resize this however we want, horizontally and vertically. But let's just restrict this so that it's only resizable vertically, right? Because horizontally doesn't make much sense, and it allows the user to kind of make this scrollable horizontally, and it's not very nice. So let's just go back to the style sheet, styles.css, and let's just create some styles for the text area. So .text area, and we can just do resize vertical. Okay, so if we save this and go back to the application, now we should only be able to resize this vertically. Okay, so it's not possible to horizontally resize this. That's good. Okay, so let's go back to the code here, and let's also add a style to set the minimum height. So let's do minimum height is 100 pixels. Let's save that. Let's go back here, and there we go. Cool. All right, so now it's 100 pixels, and they can't resize it to smaller than that. Cool. All right, so now we can actually go and create the buttons, right? So let's go back to the code here, and let's go to the add note component.html, and let's go and create the buttons. So here, let's create a cancel button, and that'll just take the user back to the notes view. Okay, so it'll be a anchor tag, a tag, and the router link will just go back one relative root, right? So dot slash. So just dot slash, because the user is currently at /notes/add. So we want to go back to /notes, and we can do that using dot slash. Okay, and the text of the anchor link will be cancel. Okay, if we save this and go back to the application, we see cancel here. Let's actually make this into a styled button by adding the class btn. Save that, go back to the application. There we go. Cool. So let's try that, and there we go. So now we're taken back to this view here. Cool. All right. So now let's go and add the create button. So let's go and go here, and let's create a button tag. Okay, and let's give this a class of btn, and let's set the text here to create note. Save that, and let's go back to the application, and now see create note. Okay, so here we see that there are some browser default styles being applied here that we have to actually override in the btn class. So let's actually go back to the styles.css, and let's go to the btn class styles. Okay. So by default, the button inheriting the font from the HTML tag, right? So unlike everything else where the font is inter, this hasn't actually got that font. It's using a different font. So if we type in font family here, it's using Arial, right? So we actually have to actually override this. So let's go here and let's just put in font family inherit, font family inherit, save that, go back to the application. There we go, that's actually changed. That's much better. Cool. All right, so the next thing we can do is we can get rid of the border that we've got here. So let's go and get rid of that. Let's do border none, border none, save that and go back to the application, and there we go. Cool. So that's pretty good. The next thing we can do is we can actually set this up so that this is over here, right? So it's aligned to the end, so that it's on the right side, right? Cool. All right. So let's go and first of all, let's go to the add note component, and let's actually encapsulate these two in a btns container. So .btns container, and just move these two inside there. Okay, save that, go back to the application. Okay, and now we want to actually put a class on this create note button, which we can then style to tell the browser to set margin left to auto, which will then place it over here. All right, so if we go here and go to styles.css and go to the buttons container class here, we can actually put in some styles for dot align end. Okay, so when a child element has the align end class, then we want to say margin left auto. Okay, so if we save this and go back to the application, we actually have to actually first go to the template here and add that align end class, save that, go back to application, and now it is on the right side. Okay, cool. All right, we have to also deal with the issue of this spacing here, because there's quite a lot of spacing in between the form fields and these buttons, right? So if we look here, and let's just dock this here. Okay, all right, so if we look here, all right, so the btns container has some margin top, and this text area has some margin bottom, right? So I think there's in total about 40 pixels worth of spacing in between there. So if we try and just set margin bottom to 0 on the text area, then we see that's what we want, right? So just 20 pixels of spacing in between there. All right, yeah, so this is kind of what you want, right? You want 20 pixels of spacing in between here. But let's not do margin bottom 0. Let's not do this. All right, so what I want this to do, it would be good if the margins of the text area and the btns container could collapse. So there will just be a total of 20 pixels of spacing. And this is usually what happens in CSS. In some cases, they do collapse. But in this case, this text area is a display. Let's just search here. It is a display inline block element. So the margins aren't collapsing as it's a display inline block. What we can do though is we could actually just make this a display block like that. And now if we just go here, we can now see that there's only 20 pixels of space, right? So if we go here, so here we can see that the orange section is the margin, right? And it's actually taking up the same space as the margin for the btns container. Okay, cool. All right, cool. So let's just go and make the text area and I guess the text box as well. Let's just make those display block. Okay, so let's go here and let's just do display block. All right, let's save that and let's go back to the application. We can now close this and we now have 20 pixels of space. And if we go here and comment that out, save that, and go back, we now see that there's 40 pixels. So this is actually fixing the issue. Cool. All right, let's go back here, and there we go. Cool. All right, so the UI is basically done here. I guess the next thing we could do is we could actually work on the actual form. And all right, so the next thing we could do is we could work on the form, and we could work on allowing the user to be able to create a note using the values that they've entered in here, right? But before we do that, we should actually first set up a service where we can actually store this data, right? So let's go and create the notes service. Let's do that next.